Today, we're going to be interviewing Nicole Greer. Now, if you want to start finding a way to build a better team, have cohesion, build the right culture, we've got the right guest for you. Nicole is going to talk to us today about how to keep good people and how, as a leader, you can get your team doing what they're supposed to be doing, according to your master strategic plan. And then, of course, how to build a great team overall. Now, Nicole's an expert in culture and culture building. And I want you to hear this so that you get the perspective of somebody who does this every day so you can glean those little nuggets and put them in place in your company. Let's get to the interview. Nicole Greer, how the heck are you?
I am vibrant today. How are
I,
you?
well, I could tell you're vibrant. 2 lumps of sugar in your coffee today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when you lead with that good, solid, positive attitude, that's why you got invited here to talk about what we're talking about today, which is why do I keep losing people? So I'm sure you're going to be talking to us about
Oh,
culture and values and
yes.
people and retention and all of the things that cause us headaches and stress, lost money, lost time, feeling like we're hitting reset.
That's right. Keeps us working up into the last second of Christmas Eve and starting on the 26th at 8 a.m. Absolutely.
Yeah. Was that a shot at you and I? Because we might be the last 2 people working in North America right now.
No, it's December 20th. We're like
I
five
know.
days ahead
You're
of
right. Everybody
schedule.
in retail
Yeah.
is still working. Yeah. It's just you and I.
Oh, yeah. Let's have a moment of silence for the people in retail and the people who
Yeah.
drive the Amazon truck. Oh my God.
Oh my
Those
gosh.
poor
Those
people.
guys are so busy.
No, I know. My husband had this standing joke. People would like knock on the door to bring goodies over to our house because we
Yeah.
have that kind of neighborhood. We're really blessed. And so he would like say, "Come in if you can just work your way around the Amazon packages that Nicole has had to,
Delivered. Yeah.
because they're just stacking up in the front foyer." But I'm like, listen, I didn't go to the mall at all.
Right.
No
Yeah.
mall at all. Yeah.
No
So
mall at all. That's the new saying.
that's it.
Hey, people might not know who you are. I mean, I know who you are, but let me ask this question.
Mhm.
Nicole Greer, who the heck are you? And how is
Well,
it you come to be speaking to all these forward facing contractors all over the world?
yeah. So I am the Vibrant Coach. So I started my business in 2007, and a fun story. I was in my coaching program, and the master coach had everybody write down one word that described the people that were in the class as we were graduating. And when I
Mm,
got my little pieces of paper from the 16 people, 10 out of 16 people wrote down vibrant, which I think is weird because that's not
yeah.
like a
That's not a normal
regular
everyday word.
word. Right.
Yeah.
Like they could
Yeah.
have said energetic or something, but most of them said vibrant. And then I said, well, that's what we're naming this coaching company. And so over the years, I did a lot of coaching, a lot of executive coaching. And my background is that I was a trainer for a company called Summit Properties. And I was
Mm,
there 14 years. And we built and we managed beautiful Class A apartment communities all over the Southeast, from like Maryland over to Texas. And I just always did training and coaching. And then after a little while, I was asked to do more and more work. Could you help us with this recruiting?
right.
Could you help us with that? And I was like, of course, because these were all things that I did in my career managing beautiful apartments. And it wound up that I finally think I've landed on the exact name of my company, which I did about 4 years ago, which is Build a Vibrant Culture, because I do everything from recruiting to coaching to training to consulting. And the number one thing I'm doing right now is
Mm.
a lot of HR audits, helping people get their people
Oh,
stuff in place.
isn't
Yeah,
it funny? We're trying to run businesses, but we're actually building teams to run a business, and we need
right.
people.
100%.
Yeah, we need people. One of the other industries that I work with a lot is cabinetry. And it seems to be a race to replace people with robots or machinery, but you still need
Hmm.
somebody to push the button and take the piece of wood from the front to the back of the machine. And we're never going to get to that point. I shouldn't say never. It'll be a long time.
Long time.
Yeah, we
Yeah, there's
need
still got to
people.
be a
We need
human
people.
brain behind the AI. No matter what
Yeah,
anybody says, there's a human brain.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I can only get so big on my own before I need quality people, people I can trust, so that I can go and I don't know, go to the beach in Mexico while they're still running
100%.
the shop. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to have a self-managing company. I mean, that's really the ultimate goal.
Hmm. Yeah. Profitable, self-managing company. Yeah.
Yes, I like that word inserted. That's very good.
You're profitable as well. Yeah. So we're going to talk today about why do I keep losing people? Because first, I mean, we know that recruiting is a challenge, and it's always been a
Hmm.
challenge. And that I would also forward nobody has a magic bucket that they get great employees from. But we talked about that a lot on the show already. And the reason I wanted you to come on here is to talk about retaining them, keeping them. And again, the question is, why do I keep losing all my people? So maybe you could take me through your HR, culture, vibrancy, mind, and let's break that apart for people so they get some actionable steps, easy things that they can do.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about the employee life cycle. So I don't know
Mm.
if any of your listeners have actually sat down and thought, when an employee comes to work for me, they have like a little life cycle, a system that they go through. And my thought is just like you would build a house or install cabinets or do whatever, you would want to do things in a systematic way, be
Mm-hmm.
systemic about it. And so
Right.
the same thing counts for your employees. So the first thing we want to do, and we're doing this right at the end of December 2024, this podcast, is we want to think about 2025, like what's our strategy for people? So where a lot of people have already sat down and done their budget, maybe cast a vision for 2025, I often find that like all the strategy about building revenue and maybe, looking at the expenses and all those kind of things have been taking place, but we
Mm-hmm.
haven't just had the people conversation. So the first thing we want to do is we want to have a strategy in place to deliver a corporate people strategy that supports the
Huh.
business strategy, right? So I'll tell you a quick story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm
Okay,
getting my head wrapped around that. Develop a corporate, like a business strategy that,
right.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working with a wonderful company that I work with here in Denver, North Carolina, and it's called Hydac. And they build cooling systems that go like in wind turbines and your Caterpillar backhoe and
Mm.
your
Okay.
tractors and all the stuff. And I sat down with the leadership team, had 9 people in the room, and we talked about where are we going in 2025. And they're like, we already did our strategic planning. And I'm like, well, I know, but where are we going? Because only people are going to get you there. So they told me where they were going. They want to go to this big number, big,
Mm.
giant, fat profit number that you were talking about just a minute ago. And I said, well, how many new leaders will we need in 2025 to pull that off? And then who will they be managing? Well, it turns out they're going to have like a full second shift instead of just a partial. They're going to
Okay.
have possibly a third shift, and so they're telling me all these things. So I'm like, "Wait, whoa, 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 let's write this down." So when it turned out, it was like, we're going to
Mm.
need 8 leaders and like almost like 30 people in 2025.
30 net
So
new hires, brand new
yeah,
heads, right? Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we need to start NOW now to try to find these people. And they're like, well, we're not ready to hire. And one thing I want to share with everybody who's listening, you can look for people even if you don't have a position.
Right. Yeah. It's just scary and it feels like a waste of time. But
I think it's the best investment you can make, right?
yeah, I agree.
And here's
Always
the
be
thing.
looking for good people.
100%. And so let's say that I did find somebody who is fantastic to be on my team. Like I found a carpenter or I found a plumber, an electrician, whatever. And I thought, oh
Hmm.
my God, this guy, this gal is great. I bet you, even if you don't have a position, don't miss this. This is really serious right here. You
Yeah.
might have what I call a turkey on your team.
Turkey
And
team.
you might be like, oh, if I hired them, then I could maybe invite this one to get better. I could try to
Yeah.
coach him in, or I
Yeah.
could do this. I could coach him out of here because I've
Yeah.
got somebody waiting in the wings. So
Hang
that's a
on a
whole strategy
second.
right there.
Hang on, Nicole.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
You're might be the nicest person I've spoken to this month. And you just said that if somebody doesn't cut it on my team, I can invite them to leave.
Yeah. Well, yes, but before you invite them to leave, here's what I suggest is
Right.
that you coach them in. And can I explain that?
I do. And I agree with you, by the way, but so I'm playing a little bit. But yes, please do.
Okay, so I'm a coach. I just said that, who is she? Who the heck
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
I'm a coach first and foremost. Now, here's the thing about coaching, just like in athletics, what the way I coach people in their workplace is to perform. And when you are an employer,
Hmm.
you hire people to perform. And so a lot of people have got to get that straight in their head because they are like, well, I really like George. George is a nice guy. fantastic, but he's not really that nice because you can't get him to do his job. I mean, like people are confused about niceness and all
Yeah.
these kind of things, and it's like, I think in if you really want it, you can have a nice guy who does the job and does it excellently.
Right.
And I think people need a great leader and coach to help them get there. So, you coach people in. Now, here's what I have found in all the years of doing this, because, I've got some age on me. And so here's I have some wisdom now. That's the only good thing about getting old.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Once
that.
you get glasses, I think you can say that. Once you have glasses, you can
Oh
start
yeah, and I
saying,
got
"Here's
them.
wisdom."
I got
Right?
the
Yeah.
glasses,
Yeah.
but thank God I don't have any other things hanging off of me yet. Anyway, so I've got the glasses. So here's the thing is I can work with people and say to them, here's the goal you have for this month. I need you to reach this goal because when you reach that goal, then I'm going to reach this goal in revenue or this goal
Mm,
in a number of jobs completed or whatever
sure.
KPIs, key productivity indicators we have. And if you coach them and they don't like it, they'll leave. You don't have to fire them later when you're really
Oh yeah.
irritated.
Right. Oh, it's the best. It
Hmm.
they walk out and they walk out saying, "There's been a lot of changes in this company, and I don't like it." And you're just golf
Right.
clapping in the background.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my daddy would say, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. That's what my daddy would say.
Well, that is a pretty southern saying. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
So I mean, and then like when they're walking out for maybe like 5 minutes, you're like, oh, there he went. And then like 5 hours later, you're like,
You
it's
know,
going to
I'm
be a
so
whole new
glad you said
workplace.
that. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you said that because I'm talking to everybody watching this or listening. How many times have we let somebody go? And of course, we're trying to keep them. We're not trying to let people go. We're trying to keep a team so we can
Oh,
get something done. But when you let people go, what happens in the company is suddenly somebody stops you in the hallway and they're like, "Hey, that Dom guy, thank God you let him go." Like now
yeah.
that Dom's, I'm using my own name, right? All right. Or what did you say, Tom the turkey?
I always talk about turkeys and eagles. That's my
Oh,
little
okay.
thing
You
I
didn't. I
talk
always
about.
use names, right? Right. Big,
Yeah.
blaming Bob the Blamer or something like
George.
that.
George was the name I used.
George,
George
but
was the
yeah,
name
there
I
could be a
used. Yeah.
George listening. George, we're not talking about you. We're
No, you're
talking about
awesome.
we're talking about Jorge. Jorge, we're not talking about you either. Yeah. Um, but we always have those people on the team, and the challenge is if I let that person go, man or woman, we're not going to hit the project timelines. Now we're going to be behind. And I got to tell you, I know it sucks, but you got to do it. You got to do it
You do.
even if you're behind because that person's dragging you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any
And I'll
monetary? Oh, go.
can I add to that real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I would add to it. Um, when you do let George go or you coach him out, your goal is really to coach him out. Okay, they quit on their own. So George is coached out, and you said people say, "Thank God you let him go." But here's the thing, if you don't let him go or you don't coach him out, everybody, when they're having their break, they're like, what's wrong with Dom? Can he not see what is wrong with Turkey over here, with George over here? I mean,
Yeah.
George is late. Is anybody doing anything about that? So, you know who the turkey is before George is the turkey? The leader is the turkey because they have
Wow.
a blind spot and everybody's talking about it because people aren't stupid. People are smart. They're like, I'm working my butt off over here and he's slack. Not fair.
Wow. Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
So you, even though you're super nice, you can still drop the hammer when it's needed.
Yeah, but here's the thing about the hammer. I don't really have a hammer. I just I just am like try to be, and here's another thing about keeping employees is being consistent,
Mm,
right? Like
yes.
if I was to say, what's the best thing a leader can do to keep people? Um, Set a standard and be consistent with the standard, no matter what the standard is. I don't,
Mm,
if it's a standard on tardiness, a standard on work quality, a standard on customer service, a standard on dress code, whatever
hmm.
you want to talk about. The minute you let somebody violate, boom, everybody gets to violate. There we go. It's
Yeah,
out of control. It's a zoo.
that's a good point. And that's
Yeah.
that's one of the challenges of being a leader is keeping your finger on the pulse of everything. But it's the
Mm,
people part that's the most important, and a little bit of judgment has to come
100%.
into it. But keeping everything running tickety boo. We're really for those of you out there who play fantasy football, it's the same thing in the company. You're just trying to put together your fantasy team, but you actually have them on your team.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
right? You choose that team, and sometimes you
100%.
make changes on the team. Pretty unemotional. Get rid of that position, move another one in. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
the question I was going to ask is if you got any insights into the financial impact of keeping a person who's underperforming or how much it costs to replace a person.
Uh, it would be a swag. It really would be a silly guess. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. It costs you a lot of money. And I think where the money really is impacted the most is because of the time,
Yeah.
right?
It's the time.
So,
It's not the actual cash outlay.
right. And here's the thing. As the owner of a company, if I have an underperforming person, typically, I am the highest paid person in the company.
Mm.
Okay. Although, most entrepreneurs, every dollar they get, they're pouring it right back into the
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
They are pulling a salary out. So there you go. But here's the thing. If I have to stop what I'm doing, which is go get another sale, book another project, and
Hmm.
instead I'm talking to George, take your salary, divide it by the number 2080. That's your hourly wage, which
Hmm.
you probably haven't thought about in a long time. And and then say, it just cost me whatever, $300 to talk to George.
Yeah.
See,
If it took an
that's
hour. If it took an
right.
hour. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that's what I would say. And there's all like FYI, there's this thing out there called the Society for Human Resource Management. And so the
Mhm.
nickname is SHRM
Sherm.
and
Yeah.
SHRM. And you can go to SHRM.org. And it would be great for all your listeners if you had a human, another leader in your company that was kind of a people person who cared about the human resource piece, if you don't have a dedicated HR person, and
Right.
had them join SHRM. And I don't know how much it is. I just renewed mine. It was like $350 a year or something
But
like
it's
that.
worth it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can Google up stuff, and they would probably be able to tell you the
How to
number, and
do
they've
it.
done actual research. It wouldn't be a guess. Yeah.
Right. That's so interesting. And so what do you get from that human resource company? Like where or that
So it's a
association?
national, yeah, it's a national association. It is a huge resource for me. So, for example, I just had a client who said, I had this young person say in a meeting, I'm late every Thursday on purpose, so I skip the weekly meeting.
What? And
And
they
I
said
was
it with a
like,
straight face.
oh yeah, like no filter, like no consciousness of like how ridiculously terrible that work ethic is, like zero.
Yeah.
And so,
And
we
nobody's calling me on it.
right. Right. It's been going on for months. And the senior leader that was like, "What?" And so she called me and she's like, "I'm so angry I can't talk to this guy." And I'm like, "Okay, well, here's what we do." But she wanted a tardiness policy. And see, she didn't really have this tardiness policy in her employee handbook. It was kind of like, "I need you to be on time," is what it said in the handbook. And I'm like,
Right.
"Well, the reason for the handbook is to lay it out clearly so we can be consistent, there it is
Hmm.
again, about how we do things." And I said, I know, and she is a very beautiful human. Like she's one of the nicest, most
Mm.
deep, loving people I've ever worked with. Um, and she doesn't want to be ugly in the employee handbook. I'm like, that's what it's for.
Well,
The
yeah,
employee handbook is to say, here's the rules, and we're telling you up front so it's fair. It's really
right.
beautiful.
It's fair to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have to
Right.
make the handbook come to life too, right? Because
100%.
just pointing to the handbook is okay, but at some point you have to have that side conversation with people and say, look, you're late. You can't be late. What I like, there's a number of approaches to take here, but when you're late working for me, you're stealing from everybody in the company because now somebody's waiting for
Oh,
you to do
yes.
work. Somebody's waiting on you, or there's work piling up. And you told the team when you joined the company, you'd be here on time. You're not here on time. So that can't continue. And then we just hear the most fantastic excuses, don't we?
Oh, yes. There's really good ones.
Just, yeah. I mean, and you and I could get as creative as we want in repeating them, and somebody will come up with something with a straight face and say it.
More redonkulous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the beautiful thing about my audience is they're contractors and they're used to having pretty logical, factual conversations with other subs and
Hmm.
builders. And so I would hope that most of us are okay with it, but I have to tell people it doesn't make me feel good in my stomach to have a tough conversation with somebody about something I feel they should have learned as a kid at their kitchen table.
Oh, you are preaching to the choir. I'm with you 100%. Yeah. So, well, I'll say this. I'll say this. One of the things that I learned when I was at Summit Properties, because when I got there, I was like in my early 20s. Okay.
Mm,
So I was just, I was just a baby girl. And when they hired me on, my manager sat down with me and read the employee handbook with me. There was none of this. There was none of this pull that thing out of the back and sign it or digitally sign it through ADP or whatever. It was
right,
none of
right.
that. It was like she sat down, we were making eyeball contact and she's like, I need you to be on time. And what that means is you're here at 8 o'clock and we start working at 8 o'clock, and if you're going to be late, you need to call so I know what's going on so I don't worry. And I mean, and she was in her 40s. It was like talking to your mom and
Yeah,
you're like, yes, ma'am. And so I mean, I wasn't late. I didn't slack off. I mean, she like laid the groundwork. And here's the thing about a brand new employee. They're in that mental model of, I want to do good. It's a do-over.
that's right. This is tell me what the expectations are and I'll meet them. But if you don't, I get to make up whatever I want. And then of course people try to push the boundaries.
Oh, yeah, the boundary pushers. Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Well, I want to tell you something really good I got from another coach, a master coach. His name is, hold on, Dave Carroll. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he told me one time. I was complaining about one of my employees to him, and he was like,
Uh-huh.
"I'm gonna stop you." I'm like, "Okay, Don, okay." And he goes, "Nicole, it's clear to me you haven't made your expectations clear. Let me tell you something. Uncommunicated expectations are a premeditated opportunity to be disappointed." And I was like, "Say that
Wow.
again. I want to write it down."
That's interesting. Say it again. I think people are going to be writing that down.
Yeah. Uncommunicated expectations are a premeditated opportunity to be disappointed.
Wow.
There you go.
It makes sense.
100%. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're right. So, I mean, and here's the thing, I'm a fast person. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, let's get her done. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Right.
And I think everybody should keep up with me. And the truth of the matter is, people, people have different paces.
You're right.
you know
Yeah.
they'll still get their work done, but they want to stop, they want to think, they want to prepare. I build the airplane while I'm flying it, and other people want to have a schematic of what the plane's going to look like, and
Yeah.
then they take off. So there's the different styles that are going on too, but giving people the space to kind of do it their way. And I think with my employees, I was expecting them to build planes while they were flying them, and they were like, they didn't like it, scared them,
Yeah.
it made them uncomfortable. So that was
How
that was
much
Don getting me in
getting you in the groove?
check. Yeah.
So think about that person that was in question at the time that you're complaining about, and we all have done it, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
should you have hired that person in the first place? If you think back about it, were there red
Oh yeah.
flags or? Oh, you
No.
should have hired
No.
them.
Oh yes, because they did get their work done. I was just I had a character flaw, like impatience,
Mm,
and the maybe the lack of the discipline of explaining things fully. Because I look at something and I'm like, okay, here's the first step, and I step.
and figure
That's
out
my
number two as it
style.
comes. Right.
Right, that's my style, but other people have a different style. And so, like in my business, this was a long time ago, but in my business, I actually sell a lot of personality assessments. And I bet the people listening to the show have taken these things. And if you've taken any of them, doesn't matter which one it is, it says we have different pace,
Mm-hmm.
communication style, um, energy levels. Uh, Temperament for conflict. Like I'm okay with conflict, but there are people who are so fearful of it, it's crazy. And so
Mm.
you got to understand your people. And so back to our original question, which is how do you keep your people? You should really understand who they are at the core.
I
And I
was
think
that's it's
that's
funny that you
important.
got there because that's what I was thinking. One of the things that I've learned over the years through painful experience is that before I go to hire a position, I write down, and I still do it on paper, but I write it down. Although you know what, you could do it on Chat GPT as well.
Oh, there
you
you go.
you can say for describe your company on the prompt and say, so now I want to hire a project manager to help with X, Y, and Z. Tell me the perfect behavioral profile that would suit this company and me. And chat gpt will tell you. Well, then you take that and you go, we use Myers Briggs or disc. There's many versions out there. That's a different
Yeah,
interview.
yeah. I got all
But
those in my toolbox. Yeah.
right. But then it tells you, go look for a person that has this kind of behavioral profile, right? So we just did this the other day for project manager, and they said it should be a C, D with a little bit of S for that particular company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you don't stop there though. Now you
Mm-mm.
can go to Chat GPT and say, write me an ad for Indeed or whatever platform you want that appeals to this person and detracts others who aren't that behavioral style.
Yep.
Because I know that, at least for me, it starts with the ad. Because the people that don't match the behavioral style won't like the ad. The people who do like the behavioral style will love the ad and they'll want to respond.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Intentionality
And
and Chat GPT.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, and here's the thing I would kind of also say about the personality piece is that you want people, you want to know what their style is, you want to know what their hardwiring is, but the ask as a leader, as you're developing your people,
Mm,
is I need you to be able to do all four styles. So you mentioned the disc.
mm-hmm.
And so the D stands for dominant, which I really hate that it stands for dominant. I think it sounds awful. Like you're going to take over everything. It's not true. It's more like, I think it's more like driver. I'm petitioning my
Let's
disc
do that.
company
Yeah.
to change it to driver because that's
Driver.
more how they are. Like, come on, let's go. I'm driving.
Yeah.
Like that's how a D asks, but it doesn't mean that they're like dominant, So anyway, so D and I and S and C. So dominant, influencing,
Influencer.
stability, and conscientiousness. So really, as we're developing the people that work for us, we can say, hey, let's do an assessment. And they come back as one thing. But then even that project manager, you said a C with D and a little bit of S. Is that what you said?
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
Yeah. But there will be times when that project manager needs to be an I, you know,
Absolutely. They've got to be the
100%.
aggregator, getting the crowd cheered up. Yeah. It's just for this company that
Yeah.
happened to be the thing. And yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's
So,
so many layers to this, Nicole. There's so many layers.
oh
But
my gosh.
if anybody listening is finding people but not keeping them, it's time to stop blaming the world and look back at yourself and start to go at it proactively. Nicole and I just gave you a bunch of great tools,
Amen.
right? Just can't scream at the world. I have to change something. I'm not
That's right.
keeping people. It's not we're not keeping people. I'm not keeping people. That changes when I
Hmm.
change that one little word from we to I.
Hmm.
That stings a bit.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I think at the end of the day, the head leader of the organization has to be somebody that I like. So likability is huge. Now, that doesn't mean you're a big kiss up to
Right.
everybody. What
No,
that means is you're pleasant. You know who your employees are. You uh you practice what you preach. You move in the way that is nobody could do anything but go, wow, I really respect this guy. I really respect this gal because she
mm,
works her butt off and she does what she says she's going to do. Um,
yeah,
and she is fair and consistent. That's what likable really is, right? And then the other thing about being a great leader is that you're likable, um, and you keep good people, but you also have like an intention to connect with people, and you do it intentionally. And a lot of leaders are like, I'm an introvert. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Just like we were talking about. Now you have to be an extrovert sometimes. Sorry, you're in charge. And so,
yeah.
can I tell you a quick story
Fake it for
about a
20
guy who's
minutes.
an introvert? That
Yes.
that
Yeah.
okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So I had this client. He's down in South Carolina, and he's a raving introvert. He's like a mad genius behind the green Wizard of Oz curtain,
Mm,
pulling the levers and doing his magical business thing he does.
right.
And so I'm like, people want to know you. And he's like in his 60s, and I'm like, they want to know you. They want to know how you figured out your mad genius stuff. The young people that you complain about, like you were just talking about, that if you hold court with them, you'll find that they're very bright. They're just hungrier than we ever were. because they're
Mm,
exposed to the internet and TikTok. And on in the internet and TikTok it says you can make $1 million tomorrow. And so they're looking for that opportunity. And so
yeah.
we might not be able to help them make $1 million tomorrow, but we could help them make $1 million over their lifetime and become a millionaire working for us, right?
Hmm.
So, anyways, so I said, how many people can you handle at one time? And he goes, well, I can do well like in a boardroom. I'm like 7, 8 people. And he's like, yeah. I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Every 2 weeks, you're gonna take people who are picked, seen as high potentials or
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's achieved something fantastic, and you're going to take them to your country club because he had a really bougie country club, and you're
Of
going to take
course.
them there, and you're
Yeah.
going to feed them a whatever, a nice sandwich or whatever at lunch. And you're going to tell them, please bring two powerful questions to ask me, and I'll answer all your questions. So he starts doing this every 2 weeks, and he has a lot of people. So every 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
so this becomes the coveted prize.
You got lunch. Yeah. You got lunch with Larry, right?
Right. Right. And so like people come back and they're like, I was at the club and I got, I mean, you know what I mean? And people are like, all people want is a raise. They want money. No, they want to go to the bougie club and have lunch. They think that's fantastic. And those people, they stay, they want to be part of the thing. And so he also got to know his people. So when he was pulling his magical levers behind his Wizard of Oz green curtain, he was like, oh, you remember that kid that graduated from NC State that has the engineering, blah, blah, blah? I need to talk to him.
Yeah. He's
So
got a
he,
great
like, he
idea.
did,
Nobody ever asked
yeah,
him. Yeah.
he didn't even know the resources he had. He just knew he had this next generation.
And how do I get through them? But slowing down and talking to people, like really talking to them, connecting, it sounds hard, but the example you just illustrated is great. It's just great.
Yeah.
Have a chance to talk to your people. People really want to work on a winning team. And it comes down, does everybody
Oh,
have the same t-shirts? Do we all have the same hats? Do we am I proud of our team, or are we just driving around and looking like
trucks.
heck? And yeah, well, I mean, it's fine to be in a truck, but is the truck something I'm proud of? Are we held to a standard? What does
No,
it mean to be on the team?
There's French fries in the floorboard and 12 cups rolling around the back.
Yeah, right. But people leave and people stay for some soft reasons, right? You mentioned that Christmas and New Year's
100%.
is coming right now.
Hmm.
There's people talking amongst their family, and they're going to be saying, "Oh, you know what? Maybe George needs to look for a new job." And somebody's going to say, "Hey, come to my company. They're hiring."
That's
You
right.
might lose people
100%.
after this holiday because you haven't kept them. So I think what I'm learning from you is, the question was, why do I keep losing people? What I'm learning from you is that if I'm not intentional about keeping them, I'm going to lose them.
Oh, that's correct. That's absolutely correct. Yeah, and I think the other thing that I was gonna go through that employee life cycle, and we've kind of hit on some things like attracting. You talked about attracting through a proper ad placement.
Mm.
Then I think the thing that starts from there is we recruit, we hire, and then we need to be celebratory.
Oh,
And I
what?
and
That's
I
new.
think that
Tell me.
that is
Yeah.
what is missing, So people love a party. I mean, nope, argue with me if you want to, but at the
No,
end of the day,
no.
even the introverts like the party with the right person, whether
Hmm.
it's poker with the boys or it's having your family over for dinner on Sunday or whatever, we all love a party. And when the leader is celebrating the performance, and I'm using that word on purpose, of their
Mm.
people, calling it out, people feel appreciated. They feel um, excited. The likability goes through the roof, and they would never leave. So I think you have to celebrate things.
Interesting. Yeah. It's really just all about taking it seriously and
Mhm.
keeping those people happy and protecting them, but being intentional about all of it, which is so
Yeah.
interesting because none of us go into this business to build a team. We go into this business to build stuff.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like we're just good with
Right.
our
A hundred
hands
percent.
and we know how to build stuff, or we know how to take it apart and put it back together, or we know how to modify it. And, it's just second nature. But none of us go into this business thinking, you know what? I'm going to build a team. I'm going to have managers and foremen and people in charge of departments and then somebody in charge of quality control in a van who goes around. No, nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks that. But that's what we get when we decide to be a business owner on a growth path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
And so really have to switch your gears over to,
Well,
being a developer of people.
yeah. So what we talk about here on the show is I want everybody who's listening to be a business person who just happens to be a contractor and not just a contractor with a crew. And
Hmm.
it's that
That's
mental
good.
shift. It's that change in attitude. It can come over you slowly, it can come over fast, whatever. Just let the wave wash over you. Get a little bit of it today from us talking to you, Nicole, and keep checking back on the show and keep watching us on YouTube because the next wave is coming. The next topic's coming. As long as you're there down at the beach, the waves are going to keep coming and you're going to keep getting
That's
wet.
right.
That's all you want. Just keep getting that information. Eventually it'll start to flow through. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I
Well,
tell you a story about my first leader that
yeah. Yeah.
celebrated things just real
Yeah.
quick? So I said I worked in the apartment biz, and I was always put on new lease ups because I'm a good salesperson. And so, I would hire the leasing team, I would hire the maintenance supervisors. I had to be the go-between the construction
Mm,
office. I'd go down and talk to those guys all the time. I'd be like, "Is there any way that apartment could be finished on Friday the 12th or whatever?" And they're like, "We'll see, Nicole." But I mean, like, I was always pushing the envelope, trying to get, as my dad would say, butts in the seats. And so,
yeah. Yeah.
I was always down there working with those guys. But John Gray was the president of the company, and he made up these little plexiglass blocks. I mean, it was the size of my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it said "add a girl," and then he had "add a boy." And
Mm-hmm.
that's it, and the logo of the company. And I don't know how much he paid for these pieces of plastic, but he had them like a bazillion probably printed up. And he would look at the KPIs on Monday after the weekend because you lease most of your apartments on Saturday and Sunday.
Of
And
course,
so
yeah.
he would look at, yeah, and he would look at that, and he'd look and he'd say back in the day he would send a fax, and it would say it would say, "Who was working this weekend?" And I would send it back and say, "Me," And so he, like, 2 days later in the mail would come this atta girl with a handwritten note that said, "Nicole Greer, I'm so glad you're on my team." That's it. I mean, I bet you Judy McLeod, she was the assistant, wrote all those, and
Judy.
she just
We
sent them.
Judy, we know it was you, but the intent, the intent was
Didn't
there.
matter to me
Right. But you still
because
remember that, right? You still remember
oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had stacks of these pieces of plexiglass, and I held on to them until we moved to this house, and I finally they're in a they're in a landfill.
Storage. Let's just
If
say
I no, they're in a
storage. We're
landfill.
going to call it
But anyway,
storage. We're going to call it
yeah. But
storage.
I
Yeah.
mean, we had competitions. Like, I would go over to my girlfriend Lisa Foley's property, and I'd be
Mm.
looking in her office. How many pieces of plastic does she have?
Oh, it
So,
means something.
it did,
Yeah.
and it created this healthy competition to see who could win the most, and that was just one of the many things that he
I,
did.
you just reminded me there was somebody that we interviewed on the show and they were doing a real push for Google reviews. And when the person that got the most Google reviews got some sort of recognition for it, and Google reviews are important and they get more important as time goes on, right? But
Yeah,
then when you got to a certain level, you got the of the month. And this gentleman who was new to the country, I think he was Hispanic, but he was new to the country. His family came to visit him at work, and he walked them
yeah,
over into the lunchroom to see his picture on the wall with his "I got so many Google reviews" awards. And that was
yeah.
his big trophy to show his family how great he was doing at work. They were all happy and proud. And that just came from doing something that the company needs, those Google reviews. He was clearly doing good work in the field, but his pride was being able to tell his family, "Look, we're here and I'm doing a great job and it's being recognized."
That's right. And we're gonna have, don't miss this. This is the big payoff for switching your brain, like Dom said, from
Yeah.
being a dude with a crew that builds things to a guy that has a company full of people he develops,
What am I going to
is
say?
that you're gonna change lives.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think that's what's really going on, but that gentleman that's new to America, that has his family, they have a future they never dreamed of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so powerful. And I gotta show you this real quick. Do you see this?
I can see it. Is it a sticker? What is
Okay.
that?
Okay. So this is off
Oh,
the
I need
top
my
of the
glasses now. Here we
tomatoes that
go.
I buy.
The
This
top
is
of
off
the
the
tomatoes. Okay.
that I buy for all the salads that I eat. I should have like a fluffy tail and long ears and big teeth. It's Constellation. Okay. Now, I actually save. examples of where companies celebrate their people. So I'm going to steal your story,
Mhm.
but on the underside of the label, it says Gloria Ruiz. She works in packing, and there's a QR code. And you go to this little QR code, and it tells all about how Gloria Ruiz is an amazing employee. And this was on the top of my tomato container, and
And you
that's
would
how
never
they
even seen it
that
unless you looked for it. But that's how
and
they
this is how they
celebrate.
celebrate their people.
What a great idea.
I know. And so I save all sorts of little things like that. That was my latest and greatest. I had it back here, so I had to show it
That's
to you.
fantastic. That is such a nice idea too. And
Yes.
now let's use Gloria Ruiz as an example. She's going to tell her friends. They're probably going to want to work there. They know that it's
Right.
proud. She's maybe more than likely not going to leave, and she knows what it means to be excellent. So she wants to keep contributing at
100%.
that level. She feels appreciated. Yeah, so
That's
let's
right.
let's
That's
ask our
right.
people listening, and I guess I have to ask myself as well. Does my team feel appreciated? Do am I doing everything I can to keep that team operating at max efficiency? You know, it's we just talked about this on another episode, folks. So if you hear this twice, it's because it just came up in an interview I did yesterday. But I want you all to think about what your payroll is on an annual basis. Because
Mm.
we've got a team of three coaches here, three plus me. And we were doing some coaching with of my team with one of the clients. And this gentleman was like, well, I've grown and yeah, it's been great, but we're only doing about 500,000 in payroll a year. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. Think about the impact of that 500 grand. You're putting money back into the economy. He's like, yeah, okay, great. Well, I'm like, just hang on a second.
Right, right. Hold
It
on.
was it was Thanksgiving just the other day. The turkeys that were on the table for all of your employees came because you and I and the coach are talking about quality and process and implementation and systems and profitability. That's pretty cool. And now, it's as you said, you and I are talking here on December 20th. In 5 days, the gifts that are getting opened under the trees are because you are running a great company that's profitable and you can pay your people. So let's not
Mhm.
blow past the fact that you're putting a 500,000 into the economy. You're changing lives, right? And we really have to think about those things. That's more of a why than the actual money itself, to me, anyways.
Mm. Yeah. And that's making something kind of bubble up inside of me too about um you can give a lot to people, and some people might be listening right now, Dom, going, well, some people don't even appreciate how much I pay them. But, that could be going through somebody's mind who's
True.
listening to
Yeah.
this.
I've said that. I've
And
said that.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, we've all said that. But here's the thing, we were talking about coach them in, coach them out kind of thing.
Mm.
So I had this young woman working for me one time, and I'm going to call her T. And T was given to me. So, maybe some of the folks listening to this too is like HR hires the person and they're like,
Oh, and then
congratulations,
you
here's
just
here's
showed
your
up.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And here's your guy or gal, and work with what we gave you. And so that was the story with T. She was given to me. And so I was always like looked at things as like, oh, that's a gift. I have a new employee. So I started working with T, and I have this energy that some people call vibrant. And so I irritated her because I was happy. So long story short, one day I was like, "Hey, guess what? Dom's coming in to renew his lease, and he's got a dog, and it's not registered. And you got to tell him that I saw the dog, and we got to get a pet fee, and but smile at him. Dom will pay it. Just you're gonna have to get it all straightened out with Dom." And I was telling her all these things, and she goes, "Why do you tell me all this stuff? Why do you go on and on?" And I said, because I care about you and I really want you to be successful. And I think you should know the details. I don't want you winging it. And she's like, so whatever. So I just never let up. I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of her way of like saying, back off. And
Yeah.
I didn't let up because she really needed to learn the business. Long story short, she ends up meeting this guy. She moves to Florida. And I'm like, see you later. And
See
she
ya.
left.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Goodbye. And so she left. Now, this was again 100,000 years ago in the early 90s. And I got this letter in the mail, Dom, and it said, Dear Nicole, I didn't realize what a good thing I had until I didn't have it anymore.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
want to say, I know. I just want to say thank you. I work in an apartment community now where I'm left alone all the time. I'm constantly caught off guard. People are asking for me for things I don't know where they are or what to do.
Wow.
I know. And so that's the other thing, when you're thinking about your people and like, Dom and I are sitting here going, take care of your people. And you're thinking, no, they need to take care of me. Uh, coach them in or coach them out. But when you coach them out, when
Hmm.
you get rid of your turkeys, someday they'll wake up and they'll go, oh my God, when I worked for Dom, I had it made. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
is what
changing somebody's life.
that is such a great place to wrap. What a great, by the way,
Okay.
congratulations. It's nice to hear that because of all the people that you worked with, that's one out of, however many that actually said it, but so many probably thought it or felt it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, good for you. That's nice.
Yeah.
Nicole Greer, if somebody wants to find you, where the heck do we find you?
You go to that thing called the internet and you
Mm,
type in vibrantculture.com and then all the things pop up and that will take you to all the social media and all the places and my phone number's right in the upper right hand corner. Call me.
perfect. That's nice. Straight to the point. Nicole, thanks for
Yep.
being. I was on your podcast as well. Thank you for having me as a
Yes.
guest.
No,
And
thank you for coming on.
you're here on our YouTube channel and podcast and everything. And I appreciate it because we spend a lot of money and time. And as you pointed out earlier, time is even more than the money, finding
Yes.
great people. And we talk about it a lot, but we haven't talked a lot about retention. And
Let's do it another time.
let's do it another time. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Nicole. Great to have you on the show.